Hello, welcome, and sorry. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome back to another Maple Bitcoin live stream. We got a special one in store for you today. We were talking about just a couple seconds ago saying, are we going to do 2 hours? Rajat said he could stay as long as it takes. So if you have any questions, with that in mind, we're not going to keep them too long, but it's Friday. I unfortunately don't have a beer to sip on today. I'm fully out. I don't know how that happens, but I got some liquid IV here to get through the afternoon. So if you have any questions, we're going to spend quite a bit of time today going through some Q&A stuff. So if you have questions in the chat, try to, if you can, put them in caps. It makes it a little bit easier for us to sift through. But if not, we might get to it anyways. So happy Friday, boys. How we feeling?
Yeah, pretty
Feeling
good.
Great.
It's been a hell of a week for Bitcoin. I mean, price appreciation, massive news with Jack Mallers. I mean, it has been a busy one for Bitcoin.
Would you guys say we're right about Bitcoin?
Of course.
Yes. I'd say
It
so.
seems like that. And I think that's kind of where we're going to start the show today, is talking about the newly formed 21 Capital with Jack Mallers, Howard Lutnick, and the team from Tether. We'll talk about that a little bit. We're going to get to strategy, GameStop, Bitcoin, ETFs, which one makes the most sense for people to be holding on to right now, and kind of our strategies that we're using. And then see where that leads, and then get to the Q&A. So let's begin. Let's get to 21 Capital. What kind of details you got for us, Forrest?
Well, I've scrubbed through the SEC filing, which it's basically an investor presentation. So it outlines the entire business plan, the ownership, who they're selling to, and yeah, the business plan really is probably the most important part of it. Ownership is also a very interesting one as well. I mean, maybe I should share my screen here and we can take a look.
Sure.
What do you guys want to go over first? Ownership or their business plan?
Let's start with ownership.
Okay. That's what I have up now.
Yep.
Okay. So right here we have the I'm sorry, I did not have the ownership up. There it is. Okay, so this is PreConvert. So they're basically running the strategy playbook with issuing debt and will be buying future Bitcoin. But to begin with, this company is being funded with 42,000 Bitcoin from the new owners of the stock. So that's how they gain their ownership, is by investing that seed Bitcoin, basically. So right here, we can see Tether and Bitfinex are the two biggest shareholders. And what's interesting about that is they are actually both owned by the same parent company, which I think is called Infinex. So they have, between the two of them, they have 70% of the voting rights. So this is a Tether company, or a Tether parent company. And 30% voting ownership goes to SoftBank, which is a massive investment firm within Japan. And what's really interesting about this, in my opinion, is there's some people that are talking about how Tether has been pushed out of the US in a lot of ways with their stablecoin business, and with Bitfinex as well, which is their exchange business. So in this way, they're kind of backdooring themselves in with a new business that is running off the strategy playbook, but is a US entity, and will get them foothold within the US financial markets. And maybe they can wiggle that into their other businesses as well. So this is a way for them to kind of, just get introduced to the US market that they've been pushed out of because of their main business. So right now, what people are wondering about, I would say most, is when you buy SEP or CEP, which is the stock ticker for the reverse, or for the merger, the SPAC merger. What are they buying? Are they buying that and that's going to turn into ticker symbol XXXI? Is that all of the ownership? What is that exactly? And what you see here is there's actually 2.9% of the public of the ownership, not of the voting shares, but the actual stock ownership, is to the SPAC shareholders. So if you're buying into CEP, you're buying into only 2.9% of the float of all of the shares after the SPAC happens. So that's why the market cap might seem low. if you look at outstanding shares of the CEP stock ticker, you might say, well, there's going to be 42,000 Bitcoin on here. If you look at the market cap of CEP, it's tiny compared to that. So there's this huge multiple, or like it's incredibly undervalued, which is just not the case, because you have to factor in what happens after the SPAC and how many shares there will be for that. And because they're running the Saylor playbook, if you look at post-convert, there's even going to be even more, because they're selling $385 million worth of convertible notes, which on a fully diluted outlook, it means there's a ton more shares and a lot more shareholders because of that. So that is really kind of goes over most of the ownership.
Forrest, could you just say, because I think I missed this part, and I've heard a couple of people say it now, but so the two companies are who and owned by the parent company? Is it Tether and Bitfinex?
Yeah. So Tether and Bitfinex are both owned by the same company. I'm just going to look up the actual name so I have the full name, because this is new to me too. But the parent company is iFinex, which is based out of the British Virgin Isles. Also, the other thing too is this this company is based out of the Cayman Islands as well, which
Nice.
isn't really that surprising, because it's just a tax shelter place to do that. But there might be, I don't know. It just starts to look a little fishy. It's not completely out of the normal, but I don't know. Starts to get a little sketchy in my opinion.
So just to clarify that, you said that 2.9% of the, because right now if you logged into like your stock account and you're looking for 21 Capital, it would be under CEP, like Cantor Enterprise Partners or something like that.
Yeah.
And that share that you're buying is only 2.9% of like the company that it's about to be merged into. Is that correct?
So the entire amount of outstanding CEP stock is 2.9% of the company after merge.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, because I saw that people were doing math on it. They're like, this thing's way undervalued because the 42 Bitcoin times this should have like a floor of this, but it's only selling for this much of a market cap. But that's not true. That would be the disconnect there, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's just not understanding how SPAC mergers work. But yeah, it's going to look a lot different. And that's why like a lot of people are wondering like, oh, should I get into this now? Should I wait? It's like, there's so much volatility even within the SPAC, and that's because of low liquidity. There's such little amount of shares to go around, and there's a huge amount of demand, and there's just a huge amount of volatility within that. So like if you look at the buy and sell price, they're going to be just crazy different because of that low amount of liquidity. So there's a really big spread between bid and ask. But I think people are actually trading this. If you look at the charts, it looks to me like people are trading this already because of that huge amount of volatility. But you have to contend with the bid and ask spread, which is your entrance and exit out of a position, which is not what you want for a trading vehicle, but you do want volatility. And that's what people are trading here. But as far as like when you would want to buy this, if you wanted to, like if everything looked kosher to you, it's so hard to know because like we don't really know what's going on right now. Like there's so much information like we don't have.
Yeah.
And then at the SPAC, we don't know what this thing's going to do either. Like if you look at the last Bitcoin focused, and they really marketed themselves as like, we're going to do the treasure or the Bitcoin treasury strategy. We're going to do convertible bonds, and we're a Bitcoin only business. And I'm talking about Fold. They did a SPAC. They SPAC'd from ticker symbol EMD to FLD, and their price pre-SPAC was like $11 to $13, and then it immediately dropped after SPAC, and it went all the way into the $2 range. It's back up at like $4. So we have no idea what's going to happen with this one as well.
Could you kind of explain SPAC for me and everybody else?
Yeah, so it's a special acquisition or special purpose acquisition company. So CEP starts out as a company, which is they're called a blank check company. So somebody funds and creates a LLC. Cantor Fitzgerald in this case did that, and they give them a blank check or a huge amount of money, and they say, go find a business to buy or to invest in heavily. And because you're already a public company, when you invest in that, that's going to become a bigger company than you just as a blank check company. And then we can change the ticker symbol, we can change the ownership over so that you're basically transforming into this company that you just invested in. And then the reason to do that is because it's very difficult to take companies public, but it's fairly easy to take one of these blank check companies public, and then you're working around you're spending a lot of less fees doing a SPAC than a traditional IPO or anything like that. That's the reason people do SPACs.
Interesting. There's a comment here from Response Audio that says, Jack displayed the starting amount of Bitcoin per share on a stream a couple nights ago. I did a quick convert and it was something like $11 US. That's kind of what I've heard too, that the MNAV right now is about 3 to 4. It's kind of been going between $30 and $40.
Yeah.
Based on the small ownership that it has today, based on, the percentage of the calculation here. Does that sound right?
Yes, that's about right. Yeah. It's gone, I think all the way up to like 4. And yeah, it's trading a little bit below that. And if you look at reference of MSTR, they are around 2. So again, that's really what you're going to want to compare against. And I'll share my screen again here, and we'll go into the business model. And one of the specific slides that really reached out to me was this one here. And they're directly comparing themselves to Strategy. And across these, 6 metrics, they're claiming to be superior compared to Strategy. Whether that's true is up for debate. This is just their guidance, their opinion, and they claim to be better on all of these metrics that will allow them to acquire more Bitcoin over time, Bitcoin per share. And the other abbreviation, which is BRR, which is, I can't remember, but Jack's talked about it a couple times. Oh, Rajat just dropped off.
Like the printer go burr?
Yeah, printer go burr. Yeah, BRR was the other metric. But to me, this seems, and I posted a tweet about this, I feel like this is a little disingenuous. I feel like this is not what we've seen from other Bitcoin treasury companies. They've really come out in the past. These companies have come out and really applauded what Saylor's done. And Jack has too, to a degree, but they've said, oh, we're going to run this strategy. We're going to do the best we can and blah, blah, blah. But here 21 is saying, this is what Strategy's done. They've been very successful with it. We're going to do it better than them. It's kind of like a little bit of a different footing that they're placing themselves on compared to what we've seen with treasury companies in the past.
So do we want to go through this quickly and just like explain what that means? Like how would Strategy be 3/4 of full for Bitcoin exposure?
So pure play, because they have an operating business. So they have a business intelligence. But if you look at this sliver, in my opinion, should be way smaller because their operating business is 1 billion, is basically worth $1 billion, and their market cap is 90 billion, or near 100 billion. If it was 100 billion, that's 1% of their business is not a pure play Bitcoin exposure. So that, again, seems disingenuous to me, in my opinion.
So on that note, though, would you rather hold a company that's strictly a Bitcoin holding company, or would you rather have like operations in there as well? I know it's not like a huge amount, but like, wouldn't you want some sort of actual cash flow coming in that you can also convert into Bitcoin? And I don't know. Like, what do you guys think about that?
I don't think you do. If you're putting time, energy, and effort towards making that cash flow, you could just direct that to Bitcoin.
Yeah, kind of like the hurdle rate within Bitcoin right now is 60%. So unless like the business that they're operating in is generating a 60% return on it, why not just put that all into Bitcoin? Is that kind of the idea? I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of the idea. I mean, people have talked about like spinning off the business intelligence side of Strategy, and like that could just be its own business, and then they could just focus on this Bitcoin strategy company, which would just be acquiring more Bitcoin. I don't know if it really makes that much of a difference, because even internally within their business, it's almost treated as separate. Like they have like 1,000 employees for business intelligence, and they have really nothing to do with the treasury side of the company, which operates almost independently and is a much larger percentage. But I don't think it really deters from it. It's just something to calculate into the total valuation of the shares and stocks that you're buying. I'm not sure it detracts or adds to it really that much, in my opinion.
It's kind of tough, because when I'm thinking through this, like, I actually talked to somebody at Strategy a couple months ago now. It was one of their business development guys or something, and he was just kind of telling me about the business. He was sitting in the Strategy office. I think it's in New York, right?
Virginia.
But he basically said like the majority of employees here, something that they're trying to do is educate their employees about Bitcoin, because the majority of Bitcoin employees who are working for Strategy have no idea what Bitcoin is. Like they've heard of it. Obviously, they know it's a big component of the business and why it's become what it is, but they're not Bitcoiners. They're just guys who build software.
That's actually crazy to me. Like if you're working at a company like MicroStrategy or Strategy and you don't understand Bitcoin, what are you doing?
Well, they were there before they became a Bitcoin company, right?
Yeah, but even after, right? It's been 4 years. There's so
Oh, I
much
agree.
information out there. You're a computer programmer. You have this background. I think you should put in the effort to learn about what Bitcoin is. I mean, I'm not saying what you're saying is absolutely right. There's probably still going to be people at some point who don't understand it, but why are they working there?
And they're probably getting stock-based compensation to some degree as well. And like that stock is directly tied to
Yeah.
Bitcoin. You would think they would really start to care about it. But you know what Rajat just said about like it's crazy that they don't understand Bitcoin after 4 years. That's how I feel about everybody. But yes, it's especially true for somebody that works within a Bitcoin treasury company.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to say is like, if you have a company that's 100% focused on Bitcoin and that's it, like if that's all your employees are doing is just immersing themselves in Bitcoin and trying to figure out different strategies, different ways to grow Bitcoin per share, I feel like that's a little bit preferred as opposed to like a software company who's just holding Bitcoin. Obviously, they have a good team there. They've done some really incredible things, but it does seem to me like if you're not 100% focused on growing the Bitcoin treasury, then what are you doing?
Yeah. And I will say there's there's all the technology behind Bitcoin, and you would think people working within business intelligence would be interested in that side of it, but a lot of them are not interested in the ideas of around it being money, because they're not interested in money. So there has to be a crossover, I think, that a lot of people probably don't have, right? A lot of people are just not interested in what makes good money and why it matters and all of this, right? So yeah.
Here's a comment from Lance saying, I'm a software engineer working on a team of 30 where only 2 of us understand Bitcoin.
There you go. There you go.
Kind of crazy.
Pretty crazy.
So do you guys have anything else you want to touch on specifically in regards to 21 Capital? Because there are a couple comments here that I think we should address kind of while we're on this topic here.
I think maybe let's just take one quick look again at this one here. This is more of what their actual plan to do to make a business or to acquire Bitcoin. And then we have basically the full picture here. So their main goal is to accumulate Bitcoin, acquire it, hold it, issue debt and equities to buy more Bitcoin. So selling their stock and taking on corporate debt, which they can do so at way better rates than you and I could. But they also plan to create modular education, branded video content, and go-to partner for conferences and such. And I imagine this will be geared towards like corporations and large players and helping other corporations take on Bitcoin. And then within that, Bitcoin related financial and advisory services, probably again, not like what all of us do with coaching one-on-one, but more of like helping banks understand it and other businesses understand it. And then offering Bitcoin related debt and equity structured products. To me, that would be like what Strategy's doing with their STRK and STRF. And then Bitcoin related lending, probably facilitating lending, either holding Bitcoin for people and finding partners that want to borrow it and then earning a spread from it, kind of like a service like what Ledin is doing. That's my interpretation of what business they plan to build and how they plan to acquire more Bitcoin into the future.
I mean, just kind of on that note, like with the education branding and stuff, like what better of a guy than Jack Mallers to do that?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I can't think of anybody else. I mean, I don't know if it was on Maple Bitcoin or somewhere else, but there's a question that somebody asked is like, if you had one Bitcoiner to go on Joe Rogan and explain Bitcoin to the masses, and a lot of people thought that Jack Mallers should be that guy.
I think Maple Bitcoin should be on Joe Rogan.
Yeah, that would be great.
One day. I guess there's enough seats in Rogan's studio, for the Maple Bitcoin crew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a party in there.
Okay, so let's I had something I wanted to mention here, but I think that's a good place to start. What do you think about CEP trade, buy, hodl, sell? What are you guys doing right now for it?
I bought some and I let it run up like crazy. I bought it in the 20s, sold it in the 30s. It's getting a little overvalued for how much initial risk there is. And maybe in the future I'll buy back in more, but again, what their plan is to buy Bitcoin for you and acquire Bitcoin into the future. And I think every business will eventually start to do this. So will they be able to front run it sufficiently? Maybe, but also I think that MSTR wins from 21 implementing their strategy because they're going to apply pressure to the Bitcoin market, and MSTR holds the most amount of Bitcoin. So I would be selling if I was to buy more 21. I would be probably selling MSTR to do so, which in my eyes, in this moment, with the amount of risk and the amount of nuance and everything that's happening with the SPAC, it doesn't make sense to me to seriously allocate to this beyond a trade wait and see kind of thing. I'm okay being late to this. I'm okay being late to it because we're so early to everything with this.
It would be very similar for me, like what you said there, Forrest. I would have to sell either Bitcoin or MicroStrategy to accumulate shares. And I don't want to do that. I think MicroStrategy is so far ahead, and even if 21 does get ahead of MicroStrategy in terms of Bitcoin, MicroStrategy's Bitcoin is going to appreciate massively. And I don't even think that's possible. First of all, I don't think that 21 can actually get to more Bitcoin than MicroStrategy. Maybe they'll get to like 500,000, but at that point, MicroStrategy might be at 1 million.
Totally.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the big benefit. And I think this is applicable to companies, countries, individuals. This is the whole thing at play. Like everybody that follows Saylor now is going to make strategy more valuable because of that. That's the benefit to being first here. And it was probably like Saylor took a lot of shit. He took a lot of flack from people about being that early, but it's just going to be amazing to see play out now and the benefit of being early there. From my perspective, I haven't bought any CEP yet. I do plan on buying some just because I love the whole ecosystem here. I love Jack Mallers. I like Fitzgerald, Tether. I think that there's a lot of promise in this. I think if they are going that road of like trying to reach the masses, I think that Jack is the guy to do that. I want to see the dust settle a little bit first. I don't know enough, to know if it's fairly valued or not. I don't think it's 3x. I'd rather just hold strategy right now. And I'm in the same boat as Forrest. If I do, and when I do end up buying some 21 Capital, I'll trade some of my strategy shares for it. But I think both are great plays.
Yeah, and one thing I'll just mention here too. You mentioned who's playing in this with this 21, or who's like part of it. Think about the amount of capital that SoftBank would like to put into a high growth company like this. They've invested huge amount of capital, all in very, very tech focused, high growth companies. They've been burned a few times, but they've also done extremely well overall and in specific holdings. Same with Tether. They have a war chest of Bitcoin and they have a serious money-making machine with their stablecoin issuing company. Bitfinex is also probably very profitable. I don't know the ins and outs of that one specifically, but I can just imagine that there is a lot of capital and a lot of investors beyond just the public that they could source money from to do this strategy and have this investment vehicle for those investors.
Yeah, Tether. I mean, when I think about Tether and Strike, they're two companies that really stand out in terms of really growing quickly on a very large scale with not a whole lot of employees. And I think that that's going to be the future of commerce, honestly. And if they kind of have that puzzle piece figured out, I think that they're going to do extremely well with whatever venture they pursue. And having Bitcoin as their foundation, I think, is going to be pretty solid in the future. It also goes to show, how all these resources combined, Jack Mallers, Strike, Fitzgerald, Tether, they got 42,000 Bitcoin together. And that's like 1/10 of what strategy has right now.
Yeah. Less than
1/10.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing, but yeah, I think they'll be very rapid. And if you look at the Bitcoin per share and like Bitcoin yield measurements that were popularized by MSTR, I imagine 21 will probably outperform MSTR with those metrics because they're like a startup at this point. So those metrics are going to just move like crazy compared to this giant of strategy, because it's again the stock to flow ratio. The stock of Bitcoin that MSTR has at this point is so high that the percentage change will be low compared to 21, which is only starting with 42, which is again less than 10%. So those metrics are going to look really good, and those are the metrics that they're talking about using. So, which is another paradigm shift, right? Those metrics are still not appreciated within any sort of field of TradFi. Any TradFi people think, oh, that's ridiculous. Bitcoin per share, who cares? I care about the price of those shares, right? So I think that's going to be a little bit of a domino maybe for other. I think again, MSTR was a domino, Semler, Metaplanet. These were all dominoes beginning to fall, and this is just the next one to fall. And I would actually say it's a fairly large one. It's a fairly big domino.
What's your thoughts, Rajat, on you're a finance guy? What do you think of the Bitcoin per share? Is that valid? Is it going to be something that everybody's going to be using in the future?
I'm sure it is. I mean, if a company's, I think it only applies to companies who have the majority of their operations um, aimed at Bitcoin, aimed at accumulating Bitcoin. But then other companies may in the future start doing the same thing. But let's say, for example, if Microsoft starts accumulating Bitcoin, compared to their business, the amount of Bitcoin that they have is going to be so small. So maybe that wouldn't be something that they're going to do, because they're probably going to be able to get to like what 1%, 2% of their company's value in Bitcoin, maybe 5%. But I don't know if that's relevant for everyone. I think it's something that basically Michael Saylor created on its own, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Bitcoin per share metric, it's not real. I mean,
But don't you think that's going to be like what everybody wants in the future is like Bitcoin? Like, isn't that going to be the measuring stick for every company in the future? That's kind of how I see it. I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't think that it's going to be measured in Bitcoin per share. I think the shares are just going to be valued in Bitcoin.
Right. All right. Yeah. So
That's
this
fair.
is like an intermediate measurement that is
Yeah.
adapted to it. Yeah. And I think that companies of strength will use this metric of Bitcoin strength and Bitcoin growth. But like Rajat said, like if Apple was to buy Bitcoin all of a sudden, their Bitcoin per share would look so embarrassing, and it actually wouldn't be a good metric to them, right? Like
Yeah.
investors would be like, oh, that sucks. I'll just buy MSTR instead, like Bitcoin centered ones, right? So they wouldn't adopt that until it's an impressive metric.
Unless they do a crazy reverse split or something.
Yeah.
I think they have like 16 billion shares outstanding, something crazy like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, huge amount.
So, I mean, just thinking forward then, like that's kind of a genius strategy if Saylor, coined that phrase Bitcoin per share. And if we're right in the meantime, that this is going to be kind of the bridge between where we are and where we're going to, and that's how, they're promoting that, they are going to make the other companies look foolish in that sense.
Yeah, they already
Pretty
have,
smart.
in my opinion. You look at even the price appreciation of the shares, like it's crazy, and the amount of action that's going on within the options market and the equity market of strategy, like how can people ignore this still? Like they are looking foolish. You're looking foolish for ignoring Bitcoin if you're in TradFi. Like you're totally looking foolish at this point, in my opinion. These people still have their heads in the sand. They still think, oh, it's just pet rock, it's a Ponzi scheme, it's a whatever. But looking in on them, you just realize, oh wow, these people are missing the boat like crazy by not understanding this asset yet.
Yeah,
Wow.
and based on the comment that George just highlighted there, I don't think the age should matter. There was a guy on X who he's like 65 years old. He was saying how, so I basically like got into a little bit of an argument with him. I was asking him to debate me. He's like 65 years old. I'm 32, half his age, and I'd probably destroy him in a debate regarding Bitcoin. So I don't think age really matters. It's all about what you've dedicated your time to. So I think Fong, he understands Bitcoin very well, and that's perfectly fine. But I would say that Jack because he grew up with the internet, because he grew up with video games, he probably understands the value of digital savings a lot more than even if somebody went to MIT, even if somebody went to Harvard, even if somebody has a great background in finance. Jack probably understands the value of Bitcoin much more in depth.
Yeah.
That's going to be the new age. Just like BPS replaced EPS, time in Bitcoin is going to replace age. TIB.
Wow.
It'll be the new metric.
Yeah.
Time in Bitcoin. I like that.
I like that too.
My follow-up question to this is I'm curious what you guys think about Jack running Strike and also running this.
Well, if you look at the richest man in the world runs SpaceX, CEO of SpaceX. He's the shadow CEO of X, and he's the CEO of Tesla. And those companies all perform very well. I mean, yeah, you can look at short-term volatility with Tesla, but it's been like no other American car company has started up and been as successful as Tesla. I mean, these are legacy companies they're competing against with entrenched markets. So it's quite amazing, actually, what Tesla's been able to do. And SpaceX as well seems to be performing really well. So it's entirely possible. And the thing is CEOs are really there within a structured company to like deal with very specific issues within the company. And they're the most important issues, but it's not like they clock in 9 to 5 at every single business. They come for the meetings that they're supposed to be there for, and that's important for them. They make the key decisions, but they can split their time up between other businesses if they needed to.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it too. That's a great point. Just a couple things here. We're already half an hour into this somehow. Time flies on the Maple Bitcoin live streams. But just a couple reminders here. Number one, let us know. We've been kind of chatting in the private chat here. Let us know if you can hear us and see us okay, and if there's any sort of lag from people, because it's kind of hard to tell on our end. So just, if you don't mind, leave a quick comment if it's good, if it's laggy, whatever that is. The second point here, don't forget to press the like button. It helps this stream circulate a lot faster and help grow the Bitcoin network, which is what we want, to help get this information in front of more people. And finally, that QR code right beside Forrest's head. We're going to have the wallet opened here in just a sec. I haven't even had time to open it up yet. But we do want to say thank you to everybody who has been sending in some sats for the channel here through the last couple of weeks on the videos we've been sharing and stuff. So, we got a couple here. Look at that. We got 8,888 sat zap. Love that. We got 1,111 from Sketchy Trader. Cheers, boys. And we got 8,888 again. Maple Bitcoin from Mark Carney.
Oh, wow.
And then just one that just came in, 1,001 sats. Happy Friday, fellow Bitcoiners. So thank you, everybody. That's a good start to the day.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks,
and a
guys,
super
for sending
chat.
that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, let's skip. This is what you get when you send a super chat. You get to skip the line. So I don't know what that is. 100 something.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I think it's rupees.
Rupees, is it? Yeah.
So it says, I've got small stakes in US stocks and I'm tempted to cash out, all to increase my Bitcoin stash, but it is bad for diversification. What shall I do?
I think diversification is bad for your portfolio.
I think diversification is, yeah.
If you don't understand Bitcoin, I think you're going to make the wrong decisions. Right? Diversification. I think even Warren Buffett says diversification is for the ignorant, people who don't quite understand what they're investing in. If you put in the time to understand what Bitcoin is, if you put in the time to figure out what Bitcoin is, then it's nearly impossible for you to want other assets. I personally sold all my stocks for Bitcoin. I have MicroStrategy, but other than that, I don't own any index funds. I used to be a huge index fund investor before. I used to love talking about real estate, but I mean, I can't even imagine myself buying real estate now, even though it's great for diversification.
Yeah. It's when you look at this, it's like Bitcoin, or let's even actually just put Bitcoin out of this for a second. If you have strong conviction in something, if you can predict and see some potential for a company or an asset, and you don't put enough capital towards that, it's all of the other capital will underperform compared to that. So it's really about, once you learn about Bitcoin, you will naturally build conviction around it, and then you will naturally want to allocate more to it. And when you understand what Bitcoin is, it's not a technology like, you know, how other tech companies are. It's a protocol, and protocols are winner take all, or like winner take vast majority, basically most. And when you see that and you recognize that this is sound, thermodynamically sound money that can't erode over time, then you realize that it's the best asymmetrical bet you can make. And it's really just as simple as that. And diversification is diversification. And maybe it's okay to take risks. Maybe it's okay to be concentrated. It really depends on your situation. What time frame are you? Is that money? Can you leave that money for 4 years? Because within a 4-year period, you've never lost money investing in Bitcoin. So, like, you know, there's volatility risk. I would say volatility risk is the biggest risk within Bitcoin. And that only really matters if you need to sell that asset to purchase something within a short period of time. That's the only problem with volatility risk, is needing to sell that asset. So if you have enough savings, enough investment built up that you could invest in Bitcoin and leave it for a long time, then that's what you should do. But again, that's just my opinion.
You can still diversify though. Let's say, for example, if you hold different types of Bitcoin, let's say you hold ETFs, let's say you hold Bitcoin in multi-sig, you hold some Bitcoin on an exchange, you have some Bitcoin in a hot wallet, you have some Bitcoin in a cold wallet, you have some collaborative custody Bitcoin, you have some just different ways of holding Bitcoin. I think it could work really well. And that, I think that's a great way to diversify, because it basically gets rid of the risk that you're taking. So if you have all of your Bitcoin in one wallet and you have your private keys at home, you have your seed phrase at home, your house, and you haven't memorized your private keys, or you haven't put it on metal, there's a flood, your Bitcoin is gone.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a custodian risk, which you can diversify out of by
Yes.
doing exactly what Rajat just talked about.
Yeah, I think that's kind of my diversification too. Is I don't hold any companies or shares or anything that doesn't have Bitcoin. So that's kind of my diversification. Is I have a little bit in the stock market for strategy, for GameStop, for whatever. Bitcoin, as Patrick said here, my diversification is multiple UTXOs, or sorry, buck 52, which I love.
Multiple UTXOs. That's hilarious.
To me, and it's true though. It's the same kind of thing. Like that is a form of diversification for where we're going to here. But the thing I'd say is, I think the people who are diversified, they don't really understand anything that they're investing in, and it's kind of just like throwing shit at the wall and hoping that some things stick, and you're okay with some losing and some winning, and you're just trying not to lose it all. But once you understand Bitcoin, you realize that nothing else is real. Everything else is just kind of an illusion, and everything else, as Rajat says, is just a placeholder for Bitcoin. So why would you hold anything else besides Bitcoin or Bitcoin related companies?
Yeah.
I mean,
And
if you think about other assets, they're technically, I mean, in a way, they're all people say that Bitcoin is speculation. Every asset is speculation, right? You're expecting that if you buy a house, for example, if you buy a real estate property, you're expecting that people will demand that property in the future. You're assuming that your government won't confiscate that property from you. You're assuming that some other country won't just come into your country and try to take your wealth from you. You're assuming that you won't need to leave the country with that property, with the value tied to that property. So all of that is speculation, at least from what I see, what I think. All of that is speculation, and I think that's going to not work to your benefit if things don't go the way that you want them to.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a great point. Every other asset besides Bitcoin has that custodial risk to it. Bitcoin's the only asset. I know we've talked about this, numerous times in the past, but it is important to understand is that Bitcoin in self-custody is the only asset that you can truly own. And you can't say that with any other asset. I'm glitchy here. Hey, boys.
You're glitching a little bit.
Yeah.
I've seen that too. Yeah. I'm not sure what you could do about that. That's probably a hardware issue.
I'm going to unplug. I'll still be here, but I'm just going to unplug it.
Okay. Yeah, the other thing, I mean, we've all said this in different terms, but you'll probably find that a lot of assets begin to trend towards their Bitcoin holdings and their ability to acquire Bitcoin. That's why when we invest, we probably invest in Bitcoin related companies, companies that have Bitcoin and acquire Bitcoin over time. Otherwise, we just hold Bitcoin directly. And that's because, again, all of that value is going to transfer to Bitcoin.
And somebody mentioned here we can buy physical gold and own that as well. The only issue with physical gold is, okay, let's say you put $100 million into physical gold, and for whatever reason you need to leave your country. How much gold can you stuff inside yourself? Right? Can you put $100 million worth of gold in yourself? Do you have a private jet that'll allow you to take that gold with you? That gold is probably going to be confiscated if you don't report it. So somebody will know that you have that gold. And how do you know that they're not going to come after you at some point if they know that you have $100 million worth of gold? Also, if you have $100 million worth of gold, you need to have certain types of security. With Bitcoin, the security is built in. I think that's pretty interesting because with gold, you have to hire security. You have to hire special security to make sure that somebody doesn't steal it, somebody doesn't take it. If somebody sees your gold, they can take it from you. On the other hand, if somebody knows that you have Bitcoin, they not only need to convince you to give it to them, they can't take it on. They just can't take it on their own, right? If they can't kill you and take your Bitcoin because they probably won't have your private keys. So you can't. While physical, I would say that physical gold is a placeholder for Bitcoin because physical gold it only works in the physical world. You can't send it to anybody in the world. So let's say if we wanted to get you to give us some Bitcoin on this chat, how are you going to do that? You're going to mail it to us? You're going to wait. You can throw it at your computer. I don't think that's going to work though. It'd probably break your computer. But what are you going to do? Mail it to us?
And hope it doesn't get stolen by somebody that recognizes what's in the package.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can hold other assets. You can hold gold, but basically, to sum it up or to say it in my own words, it's just Bitcoin is the hardest thing to take from somebody. It's the most secure thing that you can hold. It's much easier to take gold from somebody. If you secure your Bitcoin well enough, someone, I mean, they could torture it out of you probably, but if you had enough will or whatever, they cannot kill you and take your take your Bitcoin. They could kill you and take your gold.
Yeah, and think about how many people. Let's say if governments wanted to take your Bitcoin from you, how many people's houses are they going to be willing to go to take your Bitcoin, and how quickly is that information going to spread? So how many people who get robbed by their government are going to tell everybody else, or they're going to report it on social media that, okay, the government just came to my house, they took my Bitcoin. You need to do whatever you can to protect yourself from this happening. And it's going to just get more and more difficult for the government to do that. It's going to continuously get more difficult. With gold, on the other hand, you can't really take self-custody if you have large amounts of gold. So right off the bat, your government has a much easier way of taking your gold from you. They can just go to your bank, they can go to wherever you store it, and they can take that. They can take that gold.
Yeah,
there's nothing you can do about it.
Nothing you can do about it. Yeah.
Yeah. The gold only belongs to you until somebody more powerful decides that they want to take it from you.
Yes. Yeah. Which is the case with almost everything. It's why we have police and armies and everything, is because we're trying to protect what's ours, and we're grouped into these tribes and nations and everything, and that's what protects our assets. Is physical force, and what protects Bitcoin is the cyber hornets, as Saylor says it, right? The Bitcoin network protects it. It makes it so you can't double spend, makes it so someone can't steal from you. It's encrypted in such a way that is unhackable through brute force. And then it's on you to secure that in a way that is also not, that is as theft proof and as invulnerable as it can be.
Yeah, I think this kind of just popped into my brain here, but I have an idea, and if you guys disagree with this, you can tell me afterwards. But Forrest, what's our email address? Is it maplebitcoin@proton.me? Does that sound right?
Yep.
Okay. So I just see a bunch of chats here talking about like private keys and security and guns and all this kind of stuff. I think it's probably worth doing like a special stream specifically talking about Bitcoin security and kind of our thoughts on it and what we do and what we recommend. So if you have any questions about any specific questions related to Bitcoin security, just fire it to maplebitcoin@proton.me there. And we'll sometime in the near future, if these guys are both okay with it, we'll do a full show or a partial show on Bitcoin security.
Cool.
Because I think it's the most overlooked aspect of Bitcoin right now, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. And it's going to become more and more important.
Why I like this. The goal is to remove the incentive and make it not possible to take someone's wealth. And that's essentially what Bitcoin does. If everybody's storing their Bitcoin properly, it's going to make it, it's not going to be impossible, but it's going to remove the majority of incentives and make it very difficult for somebody to take that from you.
Yeah.
Which cannot be said with gold. And to me, I think the gold is the second best in terms of an asset that you can actually take custody of. So, okay, man, we got lots of good questions here. This is going to be a good live stream. So, I mean, on that note, make sure you're pressing the like button, help this circulate. If you got any Twitter, Nostr, Facebook, anybody who you think could benefit from hearing this conversation, just share it out to your socials. We would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that question's done. Should we keep going with the CEP stuff here, or should we take a break from it?
I think we've covered most of it. This is a developing story. It's the CEPs and XXXI is just going to be rapidly changing and evolving. By next week, the story will have shifted so much. So stay tuned. We'll make more content about it, probably individually on our channels as well. We'll probably end up talking about it. Yeah, I think we've probably covered it as much as we need to, though.
Yeah,
at this point.
I think I can't speak for you guys, but kind of my summary of it all is, you know, the reason why Strategy, why 21 Capital, why MetaPlanet, the reason why these companies are so successful is because they're allowing big pools of capital to buy Bitcoin that they can't otherwise buy. And you, as an individual watching the show today, you do have the ability to buy Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the asset that everybody is trying to get here. And instead of trying to get cute, trying to trade, try to do this, Bitcoin in self-custody, in my opinion, is by far the best option to be holding right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It gives you way more utility and ability than holding shares of anything else.
And the counterparty risk, which we just kind of talked about there, among other things. So maybe let's change gears a little bit here. This is from Neener72.
Let's talk about the question I got to the super chat.
Super chat.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Yeah, just brand new one.
Oh, there we go. Demir 19. 9.99. Thank you. Any layer 2 coins that might stick around in the future?
Everything's going to coalesce onto Bitcoin. I mean, once you understand what money is and you understand protocols and network effects with protocols, you realize that everything is going towards Bitcoin, and there'll be layer 2s. There already are layer 2s on Bitcoin that'll make it more usable for day-to-day transactions, like the Lightning Network, or a combination of more able in a fast transaction, plus have different custodial risk with Liquid, and it's just going to keep building. There's just going to continue to be layers on that. So what my theory is that anything that happens in the crypto market that ends up actually being useful, and I would say that 99% of the stuff that happens there is not actually useful, but any parts that are will be adapted into an additional layer on Bitcoin and secured ultimately by the Bitcoin network in some additional layer. So Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. There is no layer 2 coin that you can buy and have exposure to it through a token except Bitcoin. It all comes back to Bitcoin. All roads lead to Bitcoin.
The way that I like to see it is if, let's say, for example, every other coin is an experiment. If something works out on those coins, then it's going to move to Bitcoin at some point. Like, let's say we had those NFTs. People started doing NFTs on Bitcoin. Basically NFTs with all the pictures and stuff that they uploaded onto the blockchain before. Of course, it's irrelevant. It's not important, so it doesn't really work with Bitcoin. So I think that's exactly what applies to every other coin. So if any other coin does have some way of improving compared to Bitcoin, if it works, it's going to move to Bitcoin. It's an experiment.
Yeah.
I think the only layer 2 coin that will stick around is LNBTC.
And that's liquid.
Is that liquid or lightning?
Liquid is just LBTC.
Oh,
LBTC, yeah.
LBTC.
So LNBTC. I think Lightning Network BTC. So those are the only ones that are going to stick around. Other than that, everything is going to fail.
Yeah.
I have an interesting take on this right now, because I actually just had a conversation with a guy yesterday. And the guy who I was talking to is like the Bitcoiner of Bitcoiners. Like, he's an OG. He only owns Bitcoin. And so he is actually employed or contracted to, let's just say, a real estate or a hotel company somewhere other than Canada. And they've hired him to tokenize their hotel. We'll just keep it very basic here. And I said, well, what are you using? Obviously Bitcoin. He's like, well, Bitcoin doesn't really work for this specific thing. So they're actually leaning towards Ethereum. And I was like kind of thrown off by that, because again, this guy's like a bigger Bitcoiner than I am. And probably, he's an OG guy. But basically what he said is that the company, the hotel, is already centralized. It's already centralized. So Ethereum in this case does make it easier to move and build on top of, and that's kind of like the use case for it, which makes sense. But there's no value in storing your wealth in a coin like Ethereum. Even if the network is good for building on, there's no actual value to holding Ethereum tokens. Even if things are being moved, like it's, if you're just relying on people using it and the gas fees coming from it, it's just a totally different conversation than holding Bitcoin. Right.
Yeah.
So there will be probably use cases and utility in the future based on this guy's, who I very much respect his, his opinion on things and what he's building there. So I found that to be very interesting.
Yeah. So it's they're creating a real world asset tokenized. They're creating a token for this hotel, probably as like an investment contract
for expansion. Yep.
Yeah, which is a potential use case and a potential improvement on like equity ownership, which
Right.
you can do through smart contract enabled platforms. But again, how much of that value from that activity accrues to any given token, or is it just a use case where those specific tokens might have ownership and therefore just act basically like how securities do, how equity does, where you would want to buy those specifically because they're connected to a business, right? In this case, the hotel. It's just another way. It's like another stock market, basically.
Exactly.
And there might be some use case in that. And even that, I think, really has a much smaller market cap than the base layer of money. But eventually, in my opinion, that'll probably end up moving to Bitcoin in some way as well. Just as stable coins, which are, again, tokens, have moved or are moving towards the Lightning Network. And so even that, has the ability to do stuff like that. Yeah.
I think the only thing that you need to focus on to see if a coin is a scam, Jor, do you mind just sharing my screen?
Oh, yep, for sure.
I think the only thing that you need to really focus on to see if a coin is worth investing in, there's two things. So number one, you have to look at the supply. If the max supply is infinity, then why would you want to save in it?
So, Rajat, I just want to interject here. Every single other cryptocurrency besides Bitcoin should have an infinity there, even if they have a max supply, because monetary policy can change on those rapidly and easily compared to Bitcoin. So that would just be an interjection I would have there.
No, yeah, I completely agree. So that's not even relevant in a way. So every coin technically has an unlimited supply. But then the other thing is, if there was a premine, so if the coin was created before it went public, if there was supply of the coin created before it went public, then it's a scam, because somebody is getting something that they printed while you are paying for it. So let's say, I don't like talking about XRP. I think XRP is a complete scam, but XRP is one of those examples there. With XRP, they created something like they created 100% of the supply in advance, and they gave 80% of it to Ripple and then 20% of it to Ripple executives. And now people are telling you that you should be buying it, even though these other people got it for free. Right. And there might be people saying, oh, they should get it for free because they put in the time, effort, and energy to create it. But what do you, as an investor, what do you get out of buying it? you're just buying somebody else's. Is it called an affinity scam? Is that what it is?
Yeah, kind of. It's like a piggybacking scam on Bitcoin. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is. I think one of the important things here is you can see that coins like Ethereum don't rise in price until Bitcoin starts rising in price. And you can
Right.
just see it piggybacks off Bitcoin's success in order to make you think that that coin is successful as well.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yep.
let's just on that note, Rajad, do we want to maybe quickly explain why Bitcoin did not have a premine and what that kind of looked like when Bitcoin was originally launched?
Yeah. Yeah, we can definitely. I think that's a good topic to talk about. So if you go to something like mempool.space, or if you look at any blockchain explorer, if you look at your own node, you can see that right from the beginning, you could see every single transaction that ever happened. If you go to the Bitcoin blockchain, you can see block number 0 was 16 years ago, January 3rd, 2009. 50 Bitcoin were created. This Bitcoin can't be used from the Genesis block. I'm not sure why. I don't know the exact details, but from what I know, the Bitcoin can't be sent. It can't be spent. But we can track every single transaction that's ever happened to the beginning, to where it was created, to where that Bitcoin was produced. So if you go to the most recent blocks, this is the most recent block. Every single Bitcoin in this block, you'll be able to see where it came from. So let's say if this person sent 51 million Satoshis. If we go to this address, we can use just basic simple accounting to see where this Bitcoin came from. And if we track it long enough, if we track it far enough, we'll be able to see what the Coinbase transaction was and when it was produced.
Pretty cool. And the other thing too, with the first block there, if you go back to them, you could see that there were no transactions except the Coinbase transaction. And a Coinbase transaction is the original coins coming out of what is called the Coinbase and into circulation. So that's how newly minted or newly created coins are created and given out, is to the miners. And you can see, yeah, one transaction in all of these, and that's all the Coinbase transaction. So there was ample amount of time for people to start adopting this, start transacting in it, start mining it. And Satoshi did a bunch of different things to actually make it so that when there were other people mining, that he wouldn't be the one to mine it, if possible, because he wanted other people to participate in the network. But yeah, you can see, look at how long it went, how much opportunity there was for the public. This was all public. There were no pre-mine to this. It was all public opportunity for people to start putting their electricity and their hardware to use and start participating in the Bitcoin network.
I think the first transaction where Bitcoin was moved was actually like 260 or something like that.
Was it? Yeah, I've never actually looked at that, but I think, was it Satoshi sending to Hal Finney? Was that the first one?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's
that's
crazy.
so cool.
Look at that.
I know it was only 16 years ago, but it's even now, 16 years later, it's so cool to like think back of what was going on now, who was involved, what was being built. So cool to me. And I think it's important to note that the reason why Satoshi made those coins unspendable from the Genesis block is so that there would never be any sort of criticism saying that there was, even if it was just 50 Bitcoin, which, you know, today is worth quite a bit, but nobody could ever say that there was any coins given out. Every single Bitcoin that's ever been put into circulation has been fairly earned. And no other crypto can say that. No other company on this planet can say that. That's what makes Bitcoin so unique.
Is that it? Oh, wow.
The first transaction.
That's awesome.
So, and another important thing, I think it's a little bit side note here, but it's something to keep in mind when you're sending Bitcoin into your wallet, when you're creating new UTXOs in your wallet. This is all transparent. And so you don't want to have too big of UTXOs, because if and when you ever spend that Bitcoin in the future, they're going to easily be able to follow that back to see how much Bitcoin you have in your wallet. So just something to keep in mind for the future in terms of your own privacy is, yes, it's good to have some larger UTXOs, but you don't want to just have UTXOs, because you're going to dox yourself significantly as the price of Bitcoin goes up.
So we got this question: why do other coins go up when Bitcoin goes up? It's because I think it's because people kind of feel like they missed out on Bitcoin.
Yes.
And then they buy these other coins because they think that it's a cheaper Bitcoin.
It takes a lot less for the other coins to move as well. So there's people within those ecosystems that believe in those narratives around them, and they're the ones allocating more capital to one over the other. There's people trying to jump on the faster horse still, trying to do crazy trades of buying these altcoins with small market caps and then eventually, rotating back out to USDC. It's a lot of money from the sidelines going in, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because Bitcoin is the only thing that's really moving, and then everything else just follows it. You can match the trajectories of it. It's very, very irregular for a coin to move outside of Bitcoin, and if it is, it's likely some crazy kind of manipulation from insiders.
Yeah, and we can see I just shared my screen there, George. You mind sharing it? We can see how Ethereum is doing compared to Bitcoin. This is just crazy.
It's like one of the most disgusting charts I've ever seen. It's just brutal. Like I feel so bad because Ethereum really tricked a lot of retail. That's what they did. They said, this is the new Bitcoin. This is ultrasound money. This is the world's computer. We're going to tokenize everything. NFTs are the future. You're going to have ownership over every single thing. It's all going to be done on Ethereum. We got the roadmaps. We got the merge. We're going to be more energy efficient. Just think of all the narratives, and all of that is to trick people into putting their money into this system that is where the technology has been replicated. The technology has been taken, and people realize now, like Solana is taking market share from ETH because people don't actually care about how decentralized something is when their main purpose is just trying to rug people by creating a meme coin. Like, they don't care about how decentralized their rug is, Yeah. So ETH stands no chance because it's more of a technology that does not have the ability to create like a protocol moat like money does. So it will just get co-opted and taken over by the next technology that's better, faster, cheaper.
Yeah, we can see here the merge was supposed to make Ethereum deflationary, and
temporarily it was.
It hasn't worked.
Temporarily it was, and now it's even more inflationary than it ever was pre-merge. Yeah,
they've added 192,000 coins that they weren't supposed to, that they weren't expecting.
Yeah.
That's the whole problem with centralized systems, right? That's the difference between everything else in Bitcoin, is that nobody has the ability to change the roadmap. There's no CEO, there's no board of directors, there's no foundation involved here. It's set in stone, and it would be very, very difficult for anything to change in Bitcoin. And it's not up to, a small group of people. ETH to me really resembles the fiat system in a lot of ways. Same kind of thing. A few benefit from it. The more you own, the more you benefit from it. You can change, the higher you up and you are in certain ranks, the more you can change. And it's just like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
So much different.
There's this saying where it's like, with fiat, the central bankers can create more of it. With crypto, anyone can create more of it. And with Bitcoin, no one can create more of it. And that's really the difference. And what you said there with all these protocol changes and monetary changes, like Ethereum wants to change every 2 to 4 months or something. Like, that's their goal, is to do upgrades every 2 to 4 months. And you cannot, like, that's a security issue. Like, when you want your money to be the most secure thing ever, and the hardest thing to change, so that you have the most stability over time, because you want to buy something now and know what it will be in the future. When you buy Ethereum today, you have no idea what it will be in the future, and therefore it's not secure because it's something different constantly. And yeah, there will be upgrades to Bitcoin, but they will be super methodical, and they will have they will have overwhelming consensus on agreement with those changes. Whereas with something like ETH, it's like Vitalik will just mention something and then it'll happen, because it's a bully pulpit where he has the vast majority of control. He can just push people around, and it's crypto. It's anyone can create it, and he's the one who created this thing.
I mean, you said it perfectly there. You said their goal is to make changes every 2 to 3 or 4 months. Like, what does that remind you of?
That's the FOMC. Yeah.
Jerome Powell and Vitalik, same kind of vibes.
Yes.
What was the question here? MHMA says, this is really informative, guys. This should be a regular show.
It is. We do this every Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, you're in luck. Mikkel says, what do I say to my stepmom if she asks me about XRP? Send her to Maple Bitcoin. We every 10th video of ours basically bashes XRP. So you're bound to find, we've only been around for a couple months, but we probably have more videos bashing XRP than anybody else on YouTube. So
tell her to have fun staying poor.
That's true.
No. Yeah, exactly. Send her some resources. I did a full breakdown of XRP on my channel. You could send them that or send her that. It really just shows like how you're buying something that Ripple has never bought themselves. They created it out of thin air, and all they do is sell it. So if you're buying it, they're the ones selling it, and they have no use case. It has no use case. The utility scam of crypto is just wild, right? Everything that XRP claims that it will do can be done with anything else as well. So just show them some resources, hopefully.
I watched a video where their CEO, Brad Garlinghouse, was saying how technically you only need to hold XRP for 3 seconds because you buy it, you send it to someone, and then they exchange it to whatever currency they need. And that's it. They don't need to hold it. So people telling you that, oh, banks are accumulating XRP, governments are accumulating XRP, they don't need to.
Yeah.
It's just a middle. It's just it's a middleman essentially.
Yeah.
So it's a middleman going from a random whatever currency, let's say US dollars to yen. If you want to send yen to someone, or if you want to send value to someone who only wants yen, it's a way for you to exchange your currency into XRP and then exchange that XRP back into whatever currency the other person wants. So it doesn't even really even make sense. I actually had a debate with an XRP guy.
That was a good one. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think he had done the research on the coin that he was promoting, and he has a pretty big account.
Yeah.
Throw that link in the chat, Rajat.
Yeah.
Mikkel can send it to his stepmom if she ever asks.
The other thing I would say with that too is that as an interchange exchange mechanism, which is the concept that they have of exchanging between currencies, it makes no sense to exchange your a foreign currency into a hyper illiquid currency that can fluctuate within that 3 seconds like crazy. And in that use case, you would probably want to use a stable coin instead, which is a lot more liquid and therefore won't have crazy bid and ask spreads. So XRP just fails on everything that it's claiming to do. And the narrative of XRP will change as well, because Ripple developed RUSLD or whatever, which is the Ripple stable coin, because they even realized a stable coin does what XRP is claiming to do even better. So they'll just shift the narrative. Oh, it's not important to be the interchange mechanism for banks. It's now something else, like they'll just keep changing it because they're just using the buyers of XRP as startup fund. They're just dumping it to raise capital to fund their CBDC consulting company. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
Forrest, you said something earlier, and I think that we could apply this to XRP as well. XRP is the middleman. Bitcoin has no middleman. How do you like that?
Yeah.
What was your one from before?
I don't know.
We'll have to check the tapes.
Yeah,
I forget what you said. It was a 3-parter though.
XRP is the middleman. Bitcoin doesn't require. That's great.
Oh, the fiat and crypto and Bitcoin thing.
Yeah. What was that?
Oh, it was that fiat is controlled or is created by the central banks. Crypto is created by anybody, and Bitcoin is created by nobody.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So my version of that for XRP is XRP is the middleman. Bitcoin has no middleman.
That's good. I like that. And it even fails as being a middleman.
Quickly here, Rajat. Joe asked, why do you always undervalue Bitcoin when you do your predictions?
So I try to be conservative. Let's say I personally think that Bitcoin is worth infinity. We just don't know when that's gonna happen, right? It could take 20 years, it could take 500 years, it could take a day. Let's say tonight, if everybody figures out what Bitcoin is, what do you think is going to happen to the price? It's going to skyrocket. So the way that I see it, I think giving a reasonable growth prediction is better than massively over promising and then under delivering. So let's say I were to tell you that, oh, Bitcoin's going to be at $100 million by 2045. Even if I believe that, I could be wrong, right? And people could make decisions based on that information. And I mean, if you come back to me and tell me that I was the reason why you bought a ton of Bitcoin and it didn't go to the price that I was predicting, then I don't want to be a part of that. I'm okay with saying that Bitcoin is going to give you a 20% solid 20% return. If that means that I'm being too conservative, I'm okay with that, because it's easier to plan when you use conservative numbers and to be right, over if I were to tell you that Bitcoin is going to give you a 99% return over the next 10 years and you're going to be a billionaire if you buy one Bitcoin, and then it doesn't happen.
It's
I
easier
think
to
that's more
hold.
disappointing.
It's easier to hold an asset too when you don't have unreal or like too high of expectations, because
Yes.
you'll be waiting, you'll be okay, and once you're in profit, or once you're up on your position, it's easier to hold it than if you're like waiting for these sky high numbers. That
Yeah.
I think it will take a lot longer than people realize for Bitcoin to really be infinity. Like fiat is super entrenched, and the US dollar is super entrenched, and there are a lot of systems that are self-repairing and fighting to stay alive within that. And Bitcoin is 16 years old. It's a Trojan horse. It takes a long time to erode the system that we have. And I think also, if you just look at like the way financial stuff is done, it's just always conservative. You use conservative numbers so that you can undershoot and then over provide.
Yeah. So somebody said, oh, sorry, I7 Satoshi said, do you agree that Bitcoin has a high chance of hitting 500K before 2026 end? I do, but it doesn't matter what my prediction is. It doesn't matter what I think, right? The market is going to do what the market does. For all we know, Bitcoin could drop 50% by the end of 2026 and it closes at 50K, right? We have no idea. The main goal here is, don't try to go based on anybody's predictions. Nobody knows. I have no idea. Forrest, you have no idea. Jor, you have no idea where Bitcoin is going. We all don't know. The goal here is just to hold as long as possible, because over the long term, it's proven to be a great store of value. But even if you consider over the long term, the world has, I mean, we've been around, humans have been around, the earth has been around for millions, billions of years, right? 16 years is nothing. We have no idea. What if the internet actually does get shut down and we never get internet again and Bitcoin does stop working? We don't know, right? We have no idea. But the way that I see it, if that does happen, there's maybe a 0.0001% chance of that happening. But if that happens, I think the world is going to be much crazier. I think we're going to be worried about more important things over Bitcoin at that point. And those are the things that you should be concerned about.
I think if the internet went out for more than a month, half the population would die.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, think of all the monetary value that would disappear too. Like, it wouldn't just be Bitcoin, it would be everything else. And all of that value disappearing would be an incentive to get that back up and running. Like, just Bitcoin alone, it'd be a $2 trillion incentive to get internet working again so that we can have our money back. We can use our money again.
I'm sure back in like 1920, they were having these same kind of debates in person in a pub somewhere, probably about, what if the electrical grid goes down? Like you never go backwards. We're never going back to a time where we don't have the internet. And we kind of touched on this last week, actually, during the show, in terms of like gold bugs having such a negative outlook, like betting on a doomsday. Bitcoiners are very hopeful. Bitcoiners are betting on a functional society. And in that society, in that life, or in that world, Bitcoin is the best horse by far.
Yeah. And I completely agree with you. The issue with gold is that it requires us not to have the internet to work. With Bitcoin, if the status quo remains, Bitcoin is just going to keep growing, right? We've already discovered the internet. We've already discovered electricity. It's not like if we do stop getting electricity, if something happens to the power grid, we already know that it's there. So it'll be a lot easier for us to recreate it.
Yeah. And technology is just it's not going backwards, it's actually going forward. So there's going to be more and more use cases for Bitcoin. Like micropayments with Lightning is so easy. It makes so much sense, and AI bots are becoming more and more useful and active online, and they don't want to, like, they literally cannot sign up for a bank account, but they could create a wallet on their own. So yeah, I think things are going to accelerate with technology, and Bitcoin's just going to become more and more useful, not less useful.
Yes, 100%. 100%. I mean, kind of my thoughts on that in terms of like predictions and fiat price. Honestly, I think that the fiat price is the most irrelevant part about Bitcoin right now, because we are still comparing it to a system that has an unlimited and unknown supply. So regardless of what they're trying to tell us it's worth today, it's wrong. It's not accurate. There's no correct fiat price right now because we don't know how much fiat exists. So you cannot compare the two. So I like to think of it as like purchasing power. Like how much will 1 million sats buy you? This year, it'll buy you, I don't know, a new set of golf clubs. In 10 years from now, it'll probably buy you a house. In 20 years from now, that million sats will probably buy your whole block. Like that's how I like to think about it. There's going to be no fiat price of Bitcoin one day because fiat's not going to last forever. It has to die, and it will die. And so you should be thinking in terms of like purchasing power. How much does your Bitcoin buy you? Because there's unlimited amounts of everything out there, and there's only so much Bitcoin available. So everything divided by 21 million, that's what you need to be focused on.
Fiat price is a distraction.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Forrest.
Oh, I was just going to say fiat price is a distraction.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Fiat price is, I think, the only thing that's speculative about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I was going to say, when you were saying how fiat has to collapse, we don't know when it'll collapse. We just know that eventually it will, because fiat has nothing backing it. There's no value there. There's zero value. It's purely speculative. When you have real estate, at least you have a physical thing where you can live in it. Even if the price goes down, you can still use it. With fiat, you can't do anything with it. If nobody's willing to accept it, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, it's all based on belief. That's what
exactly.
fiat basically means, right? It's by decree.
Yeah.
It's there is literally nothing backing it. And people will say, "Oh, well, it's demanded by taxes by the government, and the government has a big army and they can enforce it that way." And it's like, think of how like abstract that is. That doesn't make any sense either. Like, and even like the government accepting it, they're accepting dollars that they can print, or basically they have a huge influence in printing, and they can create endless amounts of debt and ultimately be backstopped by the Fed. So they essentially have a money printer. Why do they even need taxes? Just because if they don't accept taxes, then people will lose faith in this thing having any value, and then it won't have value because it doesn't actually have value except the belief it has.
Yeah, Nayib Bukele explained that really well. If governments stop accepting US dollars or fiat currencies for taxes, then there's no utility for fiat currencies.
Exactly. It's crazy.
Okay, so Neener asked this question earlier, and I actually brought it up and teased him on the screen. We would jump to the super chat there, but I just threw some info on supporting the channel here. Once again, we've been in hour 20 now. This channel, I know there's been at least one person in the comments call us out on this, but we have no intentions of taking on any sponsors for this show. We want this channel, what we're doing here, to be 100% community funded. So that's the easiest way to do it. That QR code beside Forrest's head there. We also have the Maple. It's the same address, but if you don't feel like scanning the QR code, you can also send it to maplebitcoin@coinus.io. And we got a couple more here, boys. 5,000 sats, anonymous. 218 sats, anonymous, and 2,000 anonymous.
We haven't gotten any F-bomb sats.
No, not yet.
What's our price for that anyway? Say the F-bomb?
I think it's up now to 11,000 sats.
11, that's right.
11,000. Okay.
It was at 10 before. We have to increase the prices.
Yeah, you can send us sats to that QR code. You can leave a message. We'll read it on screen, whatever you want to. You could wish somebody a happy birthday. You could tell somebody to FO, but if you want us to say the F word on this very family-friendly show, it requires 11,000 sats. So keep that in mind if you're sending.
And the price is going up over time. So
Yeah, that will not change. Sats will go up, and purchasing power of those sats will go up too. So it's going to get costlier and costlier. Neener, at what point should I consider getting another cold wallet to diversify my Bitcoin holdings? What do you guys think about this?
It's an interesting question. It really depends on, will that actually diversify your Bitcoin holdings? I mean, in a sense, I mean, you could think of it as vendor diversification. So like if it was like a different vendor, you know, you got a cold card, you got a Trezor, maybe something like that. Uh, yeah, like how are you securing it? Like, do you have a passphrase wallet, seed phrase? I mean, you might even start to think about multi-sig at that point when you have two wallets, two cold wallets. You might get a third, and then you got a 2 out of 3 multi-sig. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question, but I don't have too much thoughts beyond that on it.
I think that's a great point. Like the vendor risk, I think that would be the main one, because if you have two cold cards and they're both in your safe and your recovery phrases are in your house as well, that doesn't really spread out your risk of like a $5 wrench attack or something like that. But it does. I mean, if like Forrest alluded to there, if cold card decided that they were, you know, they went, I don't know how this could happen, but I don't know enough about it to really comment on it. But if the cold card, let's just say hypothetically, I know that this can't happen, I don't think, but let's say that the private keys were released or something happened with cold card, you'd still have someone a Jade, which would be safe. I would agree with Forrest here as well. I think that if you're going to that point, I would rather just put it into a multi-sig. Multi-sigs are like 100x more secure than a single sig with anything, especially your Bitcoin. But with anything in life, you should always try to remove the single point of failure, whatever that looks like. And multi-sig is the best way to accomplish that, I think. You could use 3 different devices: cold card, Jade, passport. You could use cold card, cold card, cold card, but that also has the vendor risk involved with that. I don't think that there's a huge vendor risk personally with some of the bigger names like Cold Card and Blockstream and Foundation, but it's still there. Whenever you're thinking about Bitcoin, it's not whether something would happen, it's if something could happen. I think that's how you should be thinking about Bitcoin security, is not if it would, you know, even if it's a 0.1 chance, it's if it could happen. You should always try to avoid anything that would be a vulnerability with that.
Yeah, those tail risks are the key, I think. I think this is also something that applies to the legacy financial system. Most people think, oh, the stock market can't fail because what are the chances that everybody's going to sell their stocks? Or the real estate market, or the government will never confiscate my real estate. I think those are tail events that you have to consider. If they happen, the implications could be completely devastating if you haven't accounted for them, and they could be completely unexpected. So what I would the way that I see it, if you want to, maybe you can try getting multiple wallets after a certain level of Bitcoin. Let's say, depending on whatever works for you. For some people, maybe it would be smart to get it after 0.1 Bitcoin. For others, it might be smart to get it after 0.25. So let's say you have 2 different wallets with 0.25 Bitcoin each, or 0.1 Bitcoin, or 0.5 Bitcoin, whatever the amount is that that you feel comfortable splitting up. But over time, let's say today 1 Bitcoin isn't that much for you. At some point, 1 Bitcoin is going to be $10 million. Today you have it in 1 wallet. Maybe in the future you might want to have it in 5 different wallets, or 10 different wallets with 0.1 Bitcoin each. So I think that's something that's really dependent on you. If you're okay with having it all in 1 wallet, if something like quantum computing happens and somebody has a quantum computer and the world doesn't know about it, regardless of how many wallets you have, they're going to take your Bitcoin. Even if you have 100 wallets, they're going to get to all of those wallets. They're going to be able to break SHA-256. They're going to be able to take your Bitcoin from you. But if you, I don't know how likely that is. I would say it's more important to pay attention to the updates that are happening around that. Let's say if somebody creates a Bitcoin improvement proposal to create some kind of quantum proof code, and you have to change your wallet, you have to get a new wallet to store your Bitcoin in, maybe that would be something that you want to pay attention to. At that point, you want to get a new wallet and you want to put your Bitcoin in that wallet. Other than that, I don't know. I feel like it's all really dependent on your own opinion. If for some people, 1 Bitcoin is like nothing, right? But for other people, 1 Bitcoin is everything they have and more.
Yeah.
Personally, for my own setup, I don't want to give too much away in terms of my own Bitcoin security setup here, but I don't trust all my Bitcoin in one spot personally, whether if it is a cold card, whether it's a Jade or a Passport. I don't like having everything in one spot. That's kind of how I diversify in Bitcoin, is different wallets, different UTXOs, different Bitcoin companies. But you just have to kind of think this through on your own, and think about your current Bitcoin setup, whatever that looks like. Maybe the majority is on your phone. Maybe you do have a cold card, which is great. But if you have that cold card, if you have a steel plate or that recovery phrase on paper, and your house burned down or a flood came and washed everything away, your Bitcoin's gone. That's your single point of failure. So that's the risk that people run with just having one device and everything on there. It can be gone in a flash. And you might say, well, yeah, it's on steel, Jor, but when it goes through a fire, depending on if it's a wildfire, like how likely are you to actually be able to recover that steel plate? Are you going to be able to find it? Is it, did it actually hold up through the fire? I don't know. I've never had a fire before, so I don't know if a steel plate would be good enough or not. But that's why I suggest anybody with a significant amount of Bitcoin, always get it into at least a multi-sig to completely remove that risk. Because if your house burned down and you lost one device, your Bitcoin's still fine because you still have the two other devices out there that you could use to restore that Bitcoin or add another device to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Passphrases are a great addition to your security.
Big, very big, very easy to do, very simple, and a huge security upgrade compared to just a seed phrase wallet. Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify here. There's a lot of people talking about how Cold Card is not open source. Their code isn't open source in the traditional way where anyone can copy it and use it, because it used to be. And another wallet maker did that and is profiting greatly from it. So they made it viewable in a sense of just viewable and not copyable in that way. So just that is really important to make sure that the code is auditable for whatever hardware wallet you choose. So, friends don't let friends buy ledgers, and because they're cold source or closed source. But in my opinion, viewable and auditable code is all you need there. They're just protecting their business interests with making it so other companies can't copy them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see Joe here said for the new stackers and most long-term hodlers, super backed is a way to go. So super backed is it's software. It's also verifiable. It's not open source, but you can verify the code. It was actually created by the creator of the first ever hardware device, which is Trezor. I forget his name. But anyways, super backed essentially just encrypts. Instead of leaving your 12 words on paper or steel, it actually encrypts those 12 words. So you don't need to have it at your house. You don't need to trust anybody else with it. It's a very good solution to it. But I would say it's a little bit further down the road. I think I would start with multi-sig first, kind of work your way up to it. Super back's kind of like the end of the road for Bitcoiners, and from my experience anyways.
Cool.
We got a lot of questions here. I don't know how we're going to get through all these, boys. Even the ones I starred here, it's we're already an hour and a half in. I mean, just on this note, this is a cool thought experiment. How are you guys creating Maple Bitcoin's Bitcoin wallet, or Maple Show Bitcoin wallet, and how are you managing it? Only trust, super backed? Yeah, it's all on Lightning right now. But I think it would be a cool experiment, because the cold cards now have like that teleport feature where I think you can do this from different geographical locations. You can actually set up a multi-sig using the teleport feature and using like a webcam, I think. But I think that'd be a cool experiment, and maybe we can document how it works and everything like that. So it's all the sats are on Lightning right now, but we do plan on moving it to cold storage and eventually into like a geographically dispersed multi-sig.
That would be sick. 2 or 3 between the three of us.
Yeah, that
would be really cool.
I wanted to talk about this one. What do you guys think about this? Because there's been quite a few people asking this on my channel as well, and I have my thoughts on it. But what do you guys think? Like, is the 4-year cycle over, or is it, because it is different than 2021 now that we're in right now? It's a little bit different. Is it over, or is it just delayed?
I think it's going to change. I have a feeling that Bitcoin is just going to move up in like a staircase kind of fashion, because there's so many people who are adding money to Bitcoin. There's the ETFs, there's all these random different companies like CEP, MicroStrategy. They're all just creating more and more demand for Bitcoin, and as they go up, more and more people FOMO into those companies, and they have even more power to buy more Bitcoin. So over time, I think I think we're going to see smaller cycles. I think the cycles are going to be shorter, like let's say 6-month cycles or 9-month cycles instead of 4-year cycles. I think the 4-year cycles were basically because of retail. Most retail has no idea what they're doing. They're just buying and selling because they see that's what other people are doing, and they're gambling. They're getting lucky. They're buying whatever they think will go up instead of doing the research and really trying to figure out what the value there is. So I don't know. I mean, I think the 4-year cycle could be done, but people definitely said that in the past. I wouldn't go based on that. If you have a 6-month time horizon with Bitcoin, I wouldn't personally buy it. If you only have a 6-month time horizon, you should be holding something else. You should be probably holding cash. I would say hold Bitcoin, even if you think that the 4-year cycle is done, hold Bitcoin for at least 5, 10, 15 years if you can. At least that's my plan. I haven't even been around for that long, but that's my plan, right? I want to hold as long as possible.
Yeah. So my thought with this is anything with financial markets, people are trying to arbitrage and make money from it and trying to trade it. And they're taking in huge amounts of data. And the 4-year cycle is now, or Bitcoin is now at a place where if the 4-year cycle is that predictable, somebody will play that with enough capital that it changes it and it makes it so that it doesn't happen anymore, because that's just the way it works. It's like trading algorithms, all this stuff works until it doesn't, because everybody's doing it. So, and that's when it stops working. So if everybody thinks that it's going to happen, then it won't. Like it's like a contradiction trade kind of. The other thing too is a lot of the 4-year cycle is dictated by two different things, or like this is what people think is the halving happening, and there being a delay from the supply shock of less Bitcoin being issued, and there's a lagged reaction to M2 and an 88% correlation to global fiat currency. So that's a pretty large correlation, and that has a cycle as well. The money flowing into the markets and money getting created has a cycle that is roughly around 4 years as well. So I think likely there will be a cycle. The cycle will continue because of the halving and the M2 staying intact, but likely it will shift because of what I said earlier with people trading and people understanding that there's a cycle, so they'll play against it. And the other thing too is I think Bitcoin, its narrative is changing. It's finally going from speculative, retail-driven trading frenzy kind of thing where people just see it as a tech company, an elevated tech company with the way it trades in price, to partially becoming what it actually is, which is a store of value and risk off asset. And so as people kind of weigh these two things, what is Bitcoin, and start defining it differently, there's going to be different market participants, and that's going to change the price and its cycles as well over time. And I think that we're finally at the time where people are recognizing it as a risk off, and we've seen pretty large decoupling events, although rather short term. But I think we'll see more and more of those, and that will change how the cycle looks.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I really think that the Bitcoin cycles as we've known them are over. And I know every time somebody says that on YouTube, it changes, it shoots up or goes down, but I don't care. I think that they're done because there's just too much demand, and that demand is much different than you and I buying it. It's the biggest funds of capital on the planet. And the more of that Bitcoin flows to those big pools of capital, it's not going anywhere for a very long time. And the more that flows into those big pools of capital, the less volatile it's going to be over time, because there's just less coins moving around. And the other part too is, like, in the past, it was the supply shock that did create the havoc, the run up, there's less coins available now. But I think the majority of the supply is done. I don't think the supply is going to be any sort of a factor going forward for the next 100 years. There's 5%. of the Bitcoin left. You know, after the first cycle, 50% was gone. After the second cycle, 75% was gone. And then 80. And we're at the point now where there's only 5% of the supply. So it's not going to move much up and down. There's just hardly any Bitcoin now, period. So I think it's much more to do with the demand, the people who understand Bitcoin versus the supply of Bitcoin coming in. So in that sense, the supply cycle to me, the 4-year supply cycle is over.
Yeah, I think the people who are buying Bitcoin now, let's just think of it logically. If they're buying Bitcoin at 95K, when do you think they're going to sell? They're not going to, the majority of them at least, if they understand how markets work, they're not going to sell at 90K. They're not going to sell at 70K, 50K, 20K. They're buying because they want to hold it until it goes higher. If you just think of that on its own, how much higher do you think Bitcoin has to go for them to sell? Let's say for some people, maybe they want a 50% increase. So if they bought at 100K, they want it to go to 150K. Other people might want a 100% increase. So it has to go to 200K. For other people, maybe Bitcoin has to go to $1 million, maybe $10 million. Some people won't ever sell for dollars. They'll only sell for goods and services, and they'll only sell once Bitcoin is the most widely accepted medium of exchange. So you have to think of it from that perspective. The 4-year cycle, in the past at least, I think it was dictated by retail investors. Like I mentioned, most retail investors are FOMOing in and out. They're either buying because of the fear of missing out, or they're selling because they fear that they're going to miss out on their US dollar gains. And institutional investors don't think of it that way. Institutional investors are, at least from what at least with the companies that are coming out like MicroStrategy, they're going to probably hold forever. CEP, they're going to hold for as long as they can. I don't know when they're going to sell. Maybe they'll sell at some point down the line, but why would they? If they have this company that they can use that has credibility and they can borrow against their Bitcoin, they're going to do that. So until, I mean, in a way, this is like it's like a speculative attack on the US dollar. I think that's what people call it. So you're buying Bitcoin with fake US dollars, and then you're holding on to that Bitcoin for as long as you can. Over time, there's going to be more and more dollars created and added to the economy. So the price will go up at some point. So the people who are buying Bitcoin now, I think they understand this. I think they get it. I think they know that the price is going to go up at some point. And based on that, I think the 4-year cycles are over.
Yeah.
That's kind of my theory too, because you have to understand the people who understand Bitcoin. That's the real demand for Bitcoin. And I talk about this a lot, but you have to imagine every person who understands Bitcoin, they're now fighting for those scarce units, right? The people who understand Bitcoin, they're not selling at any price. They're just accumulating. And so those people are fighting over that scarce amount, the bottom line. And as that number grows, Bitcoin value, and it makes it harder and harder to get. And that's what kind of causes the fiat price to go up over time. Okay, cool. A couple different things I want to say here. I missed Josh. We are on the Zap stream right now. I saw Josh had a couple questions here and also zapped 888 sats. I forgot to mention that. And somebody also sent in 5,000 sats. Not somebody, our good friend, Andy Man. Great Bitcoin guys. Andy Man, 5,000 sats.
Nice. Wow. Thank you.
So let's get to another question here, fellas. This one's specifically for Rajab, but we kind of covered this last episode. Hey, should we skip this one?
Let's just go through it quickly. I think
it's for Rajat, so yeah, go ahead, Rajat.
Just the best way to convince people to buy Bitcoin is to show them the purchasing power of their currency is dying, right? I think that's the easiest way. If you can convince them that, I think one of the issues here is that people think that the prices of things are going up, but they have to understand it from the other perspective. The value of their savings is going down. I don't think most people have wrapped their head around this yet. You can't produce goods and services out of nothing. You can produce dollars out of nothing. So the value of your currency is going down. The purchasing power is decreasing because your currency can be created out of nothing. So that's for me, at least, that was the easiest. That was the thing that really got me to think about Bitcoin. Once you can convince people that their purchasing power is decreasing and the currency that they're saving in is essentially worthless, I think it just clicks from there.
Yeah, that's a good one. Additionally, you could start where they're at. You could ask them questions about what they care about. You could figure out what they care about and see if what they care about relates to Bitcoin in some way, environment, social, social issues, having more savings in the future, if they care about inflation, purchasing power, that kind of stuff. That's an easy route. And then, maybe just tack on that you should tell them that it's volatile and to expect volatility and not to be purchasing it. You're never going to time it right. You're never going to buy the bottom and only be up on your position when you're entering a brand new position, and just be okay with that, because you should hold it for years.
Yeah.
Yeah. My advice to that would just be, don't bother convincing them. You only have so much time on this earth. Every experience I've ever had with somebody trying to convince them to buy Bitcoin, it just ends poorly. It's a waste of my time. They're like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Just to understand that you are the Michael Saylor, the Jack Mahlers, the Ryan Cohen of your own family, and take that responsibility on. Instead of focusing your time and energy trying to convince people to buy it, just stack as much as you can. And then even if they're late to the game, you're still the guy who has the Bitcoin. So take that responsibility on yourself. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Everyone in my family owns Bitcoin because of me now. So it is possible. You can convince your family to do it.
Me too. You're right about family. I'm talking about more like friends and stuff, but same for me.
Yeah.
But it does take time.
Yes.
It's a lot of family dinners. It's a lot of beers after supper. And, you just have to eventually just tell them, hey, I don't care. I'll buy it for you or whatever it is, but you're getting some Bitcoin. And then usually once they have a little bit and they go through like a run up, they get a little bit excited. They have some skin in the game. And my family still doesn't really understand Bitcoin at all, but they have been buying more because they, through me, understand that it is good play and they've seen the positive results of it so far. So I think you just have to get them in the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can be some fun, interesting conversations with family too. I mean, talking in person about Bitcoin is the best, in my opinion.
Our family would disagree with that.
Probably.
But yeah, no, you're right. Do you guys see any questions here? I'm trying to keep up between the ones I've starred and anything else coming in now.
Can we do the one from AJ Tomeo? What are your thoughts on the idea of spending and replacing?
AJ
the third
Tomeo.
one.
Oh yeah, there she is.
I think spending and replacing is great.
Yeah.
Especially if you can get discounts. Let's say if you wanted to buy something from someone and they're willing to give you a discount, if you pay them in Bitcoin, why wouldn't you?
I think the other thing too is it depends on how you're taxed, because that's a big problem with spending Bitcoin currently, is government's treatment of it. If you're in the States, I know that you could separate your UTXOs and actually spend a specific UTXO and be taxed on that for when you bought it. So spending and replacing makes a lot more sense when you could do that, because you could literally buy it, spend it, replace it, and have no tax difference because you're doing that all within a certain amount of a period where the price stays relatively the same. Whereas in Canada, you're taxed at like an average of your price. So there will be some potential taxes you would have to pay depending on your purchase price and your spending price, even with replacing it, which is a deterrent to use it. But I think we should fight through those deterrents personally, because spending Bitcoin and in Bitcoin adoption, like, personally, I want to be able to spend my Bitcoin where I go and what I need for my life, because I don't trust fiat. If, the fiat system degrades or I'm declared an enemy of the state for telling people about Bitcoin, I want to be able to go to a farmer and buy my produce, buy my meat with Bitcoin directly and not have to ask permission to use that. So I'm trying to facilitate that and trying to get merchants on board and things locally where I am. And part of that is being willing to take potentially a tax hit just to begin the facilitation and growth of Bitcoin as a medium of exchange.
That's such a good point, because when we're thinking about taxes and capital gains on this stuff, it is a big deterrent for people, mostly because they don't understand it, I think, and they don't want the headache of having to track it all over the place, which I agree with. But Forrest made a great point there in terms of like buying beef from a local farmer. I think that that's where people should actually be most focused on right now, is finding community, whether that is in person or whether that is online. The bigger your Bitcoin network, the faster you can leave the fiat system. Because if I send Bitcoin to a local farmer here, nobody knows about that. I didn't have to go through the traditional finance or fiat rails to do that deal. I got beef, they got Bitcoin. So, you know, maybe in 50 years from now, if the AI ever figures out where my Bitcoin went to, I might have to pay a little bit of a tax hit, but by then I'll be a bazillionaire anyway. So who cares? I did want to actually show one more thing here though, which is pretty exciting, which is the Aqua wallet. They just announced today that they're coming out with a new Visa card, which is non-KYC. Did you see that?
What does that mean? I haven't really thought about it, but like, what does it mean to have a non-KYC Visa card? What does that mean even?
I think you could download the Aqua app, the wallet. It will have a Visa where you could actually tap and pay for things using your balance in USDT in there or on Lightning. Okay. But you don't have to put like your ID. You don't have to sign any, you might have to sign an agreement, but you don't have to like verify yourself to use the Aqua wallet, which is different than like ShakePay, where when you sign up, you have to like provide a passport or a driver's license. But with the Aqua wallet, you don't have to enter any information into there, and you can still like
crazy.
It is. I don't.
It's kind of like if buying like a prepaid Visa almost.
Exactly like that, except Bitrefill has the same kind of service right now where you can actually buy gift cards non-KYC with Bitcoin, but then you're kind of limited to where you can spend them because they're only at certain retailers. You can only use the balance at those retailers. Whereas this, it seems like you could use it anywhere if it's a Visa.
That's awesome.
Let me just bring it up here. Where is it?
I'm surprised they can do that because there's so many like laws around like AML and stuff. Somebody asked in the chat what's KYC. KYC is know your customer. What do you say there, Rajat?
How's Visa allowing that? I feel like Visa would not want that to happen.
Yeah, it's very interesting development actually.
So there it is. It says Aqua Bitcoin will be launching non-KYC Visa card. Can top up with Bitcoin, Lightning, and Liquid. Awesome development.
Oh, did you guys notice the Bitcoin price on there? 895K.
That definitely is a Samson Mao company with that price prediction there.
That's so funny.
The Omega man himself.
Yeah.
Lapad says when capital gain taxes are removed, there's no longer any reason to use the dollar. I really 100%. Think that is a big deterrent from people, spending their Bitcoin right now. And kind of my theory on that is like two things. Number one, I think the world's decentralizing, but the other thing too is like when the countries, when the governments, when these big institutions realize that they can't print more Bitcoin, they're going to have to try to incentivize people to sell their Bitcoin. So I think not only are they going to run up the price of it, but they're going to take away the capital gains because they wanted to make it as easy for people as possible to part with their sats if it plays out like I expect it to. So that's kind of one thing to keep in mind for the future is I do think that they're going to remove the capital gain tax because they want you to sell your Bitcoin to them.
Yeah, that's interesting. They need the liquidity at that point because it's a fixed supply and they don't control the liquidity. It's like they have to change the laws. They have to incentivize people to part with their Bitcoin at a certain point. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
We'll see. I just think that, whether you're making price predictions, whether you're worrying about taxes, I just think that the world's going to look completely different in a decade from now. Maybe good, maybe bad, but it's going to be different nonetheless. Like technology and everything's just moving at such a rapid pace. I can't even imagine what it's going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
I want to mention if you guys can, whoever's listening to this, leave a thumbs up. It does help with our channels. It helps with YouTube pushing our content more. So we want people to understand how Bitcoin works. This is the best way to ensure that more people see this content, more people see these discussions. If people aren't seeing these discussions and they're not even thinking about Bitcoin adoption isn't going to happen. So hit the thumbs up.
And subscribe to the Maple Bitcoin channel as well. We post a lot of videos there that only go there. So if you're not on there yet, which I'm sure many of you aren't, that's the place to go. Maple Bitcoin. Just search that on YouTube. I think George's probably putting it in the chat here, but you guys will be there's a huge backlog of videos that you can watch us talk about all sorts of interesting subjects around Bitcoin.
And many more coming.
Yes.
There's going to be no shortage of Maple Bitcoin videos and stuff. We're just getting started here. So there it is.
We want to just show Arnie before the end of the show.
Oh, I think he's sleeping. Yeah, there he is.
Oh, there he is.
Nice. That same person, Mikkel, also said my bank doesn't allow me to buy weed at the dispensary on my debit card, and that's why I stack sats. That's interesting.
Wow.
That's already like wild. You need permission.
What?
Yeah, that's crazy.
I don't know where they're located. That's the case, but that's wild.
That is pretty
I don't think
wild.
they should have that control. That's crazy.
No. There's a lot
That's
of
why we
control
Bitcoin, boys.
though. Yeah.
What do you guys think about this from Tamand? Random question. What hardware wallet do you guys trust?
There's a few that I trust. The Blockstream Jade, Cold Card, the Bitbox 02, Trezor. I mean, there's varying degrees of ability with those wallets. I think the Cold Card personally is the best. It's the most versatile, the most useful. But I also think that it's a slightly more difficult to use. And I think probably the easiest one to use out of all of those, well, Bitbox, Jade, and Trezor are all very easy to use. I don't know. Hardware wallets in general are easy to use, but those are all ones that I trust personally.
I wanted to ask you guys, I think I saw a post from you, Jor. Do you guys think that governments are going to stop us from buying hardware wallets at some point?
It's possible, but you can also build hardware wallets really easily.
Oh, you can. Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard of that, but I didn't know how easy it was. I feel like they're going to stop like mass production of wallets because it just gives us more sovereignty.
Yeah, I mean, it's a potential on ramp that they could try to stop you with. But the Seed Signer is a totally open source hardware build from really accessible parts that you could buy all over the place. You could source them right. So that's the thing, right? With hardware is it would have to be illegal. They would have to be able to track and stop all shipments of specific types of hardware from all around the world. And it's very unlikely that we have a lot of diversification within nations and rules. So it'd be very difficult for, say, China to have the incentive to not export certain hardware when their economy is built on manufacturing a lot of things. So as long as they're willing to ship it, then you could probably get pieces of that hardware wallet, whether Blockstream Jade or Blockstream or Cold Card are illegal within there, right? So I think it would be really hard to crack down on something like that.
Yeah, that's kind of the. I think it was Odell that kind of said this, because somebody was asking him, should they use a Cold Card or use a Seed Signer? Because Seed Signer is the one that you can build yourself, and he said that at this point, while you can still buy like pre-assembled devices like the Cold Card, like the Passport, that are open source or verifiable source, you might as well use that. He compared it to like guns, whereas like a country where they ban guns, you obviously can't order one on the internet, but you could build one yourself. So until your country stops letting devices into your border, then it probably just makes sense to go with like a pre-assembled device. Unless you're like super techy and see it as like a fun project, I would steer people towards like a Cold Card personally. And I don't know, that's the thing, Rajat. Like for me, I just don't know. I don't know what's going to happen here in Canada, especially with the election coming up. When is the election?
The end of April 29th, I think.
28th.
Yeah.
So like, who knows?
I've seen comments from people. Let's say, for example, I'm looking at a tweet from Trudeau. He said, telling people they can opt out of inflation by investing in cryptocurrencies is not responsible leadership. Christine Lagarde has said something like that before. Bitcoin is an escape. It's an escape hatch. Is that what she said? Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I feel like it's inevitable. They're going to want to stop us from having self-custody.
It's possible, but even with we actually don't. A hardware wallet is the best way to preserve your seed phrase and to have a signing device, but you can do so. You could hold your own Bitcoin with a software wallet that is relatively safe, and you can download software that's open source without any permission from anybody.
Yeah.
And they can't stop you from doing that. Like if you have an internet connection, you could, even if you routed through Tor, you could do all sorts of stuff to remain anonymous, and you could still access and hold your Bitcoin even just in a software wallet, which would be even easier and more difficult for them to stop. So I think it's impossible for them to stop self-custody. I think it is possible for them to make it more difficult and therefore probably affect people from doing it themselves as much. But you can see nations like Nigeria is a great example. They have a huge adoption of Bitcoin percentage wise. And it's because their government is very anti-Bitcoin and crypto. They've made it so that you can't transfer from a traditional bank to a crypto exchange. They've made it. They've kicked out Binance and every other crypto exchange from their country because they're trying to control their own currency. And they have more Bitcoin adoption per capita than anywhere else, or almost. And it's because you can still trade this thing peer-to-peer. You can still download an open source wallet on your phone, and they can accept remittances from around the world. So that's how they get it, instead of through these ways that we are able to. So the more you stamp down on this thing, it's like a cockroach. It can really just keep living. It can thrive under oppression, and it's designed to do so.
Yeah.
There's a couple of good questions here. I wanted to get to this one though. This is from Herman. I'm 66 years old and I've been able to accumulate 0.56 of a Bitcoin, 56 million sats. But I feel I won't be able to enjoy its benefits because it's really for people much younger. Your thoughts on this?
I think it's possible that maybe our expectations are completely blown. Like Bitcoin could go to $5 million in 2030. And by then, your 0.56 Bitcoin is going to be worth $2.7 million. I think you'll be able to enjoy it by then. You'll be about 70. Maybe you won't have too much energy. Maybe you won't have you'll have a lot of time because of Bitcoin. But I mean, having that is not going to be. I think having that is going to be better than not having it.
Yeah, 100%. Like for Herman, in terms of like, wanting to leave a legacy, leave stuff for your children, there's no better gift that you could leave your kids than half a Bitcoin. Like for real. So take whatever else you have, your assets, use those. If you got some savings in the bank, spend that. If you got, a real estate property, sell that, spend that. But hold on to that 0.56 Bitcoin. And I like what Rajat said there. I think that the human mind is incapable of understanding both exponential growth and absolute scarcity. And when you combine those two things, in my mind, all models are broken. So it doesn't matter what you think the price of Bitcoin is going to be by the end of 2030. It could be 100 times that, because we cannot comprehend how big this is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would also just add that the only thing more scarce than Bitcoin is your own individual time. So if you're eating rice and beans just to have that Bitcoin, then maybe I would rethink that. Because you know what, like we do only have one life here. We got to enjoy it. And yeah, if you have someone to pass that along to, that's great. That's a beautiful thing. But you should enjoy your life as well. And you're 66. I mean, you got potentially many years ahead of you. So you can't really predict it. So just compare those things and make the best decision for yourself. But I would say, live it up while you can.
Jor, do you mind just sharing my screen there? I just want to show something here. I feel like this is pretty interesting. So if you look at the Naira in terms of Bitcoin, 8 years ago, May 6, 2016, or sorry, 9 years ago, one Bitcoin was 90,000 Naira. Today, it's 153 million Naira. So you can't even buy one Satoshi with 1 Naira.
Wow.
People think that this is a crazy comparison. It doesn't make any sense. But there was a point where 1 Naira was worth 60,000. Or sorry, one Bitcoin was worth 60,000 Naira. Then it was worth 30,000 Naira. It keeps going up. And I think that this is going to happen with the US dollar as well. The main reason for that is that compared to Bitcoin, every fiat currency is a shitcoin.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how powerful the government issuing it is. It's irrelevant. Yep. We're going to see $100 million Bitcoin at some point. I think that's a given at this point, because money can keep flowing into Bitcoin, but the amount of Bitcoin is finite. When you finally see where this is going, when you finally see that merchants won't want dollars anymore at some point, what happens if oil producers don't want dollars? What is that dollar worth at that point? What if they only want Bitcoin? What if they only want other fiat currencies? How do you know that the US dollar is going to be worth anything at that point? I think that's the thing that most people can't wrap their heads around. Like we can see here, at this point, one Bitcoin was worth 90,000 Naira. Within 1 year, it was up a few thousand %, 7,000%.
Look how small that little blip is too.
It's like, yeah, that's nothing. That's nothing. Like even from here to here, it's up another 300%. From here to here, it's up another 2,300%. So how do you know that this isn't going to happen in the next year? It's not very likely. Maybe it's not very likely to happen. But what's the US dollars? What's the US dollars price of Bitcoin right now? 95K.
Something like
Naira
that. Yeah.
was 90K in May 6th, May of 2016. How do we know that in a year, the same thing, maybe a year and a half, the same thing won't happen? Nobody can guarantee it. Nobody can guarantee it. At that point, let's say Bitcoin does go to $1 million US and it falls to 400,000 US dollars. That's an opportunity for you to buy. But people won't take that opportunity. They're just going to see it as another trap where, oh, Bitcoin's going to go to zero. It dropped from $1 million to 400K. This is the fall that's going to lead to a zero Bitcoin. They're going to keep doing that. I don't even remember what the question here was, but the point here is that if this can happen with the Naira, and the Naira is a shit coin, it can happen with the US dollar, which is also a shit coin compared to Bitcoin.
Yes, and I think it's important to just kind of differentiate here because people might say, well, the US government is going to start buying Bitcoin. Okay, at that point, it still doesn't matter because the US dollars are issued by the Federal Reserve, not the US government. So unless the Federal Reserve starts buying Bitcoin, which the likelihood of that I think is next to zero. But that's the thing. Even if the US government is holding Bitcoin, that doesn't make the US dollar any less of a shitcoin than it is because it's held, everything's issued by the Federal Reserve, not the US government. So
yeah,
it's important to note that. Whereas if the US government bought a whole bunch of Bitcoin, let's say that they got to their million Bitcoin goal, and then they issued their own treasury dollar, that's a different story because that's a currency that's actually backed by Bitcoin. In my mind, that's not a fiat currency. That's a new currency, basically a stable coin that's backed by Bitcoin, which to me anyways, I don't know if you guys have different thoughts on this, but that's different than a fiat currency.
No, what you said is great.
Yeah.
I completely agree. The way that the US dollar exists today, it has no real value. The way that the US dollar exists today, we are going to see 100 million, 500 million, $1 billion Bitcoin. That's going to happen because the US dollar can be created out of nothing. If we go to what you were saying there, a stable coin that's backed by Bitcoin, that's different. That's different. If it's backed by Bitcoin, then at some point you'll be able to exchange your stable coin for Satoshis. And I think that's the key here. Most people think that right now, most people think that the dollar is, or not most people, a lot of people still think that the dollar is backed by gold.
50 years
They're
later.
so far behind.
Yeah. Stablecoin on Bitcoin is essentially a layer 2 because it's just a different payment rail system, and then it's backed by Bitcoin. I mean, there's potential for paper Bitcoin and paper stablecoins to be created with that system, but it would potentially have some sort of use case if we're not already just using Bitcoin directly at that point.
I think at the point where the majority of people figure out what we're talking about right now, it could go to $1 million, $1 billion, because why would you ever sell something that's real like Bitcoin for something that can be created out of thin air?
Makes no sense.
Why would anybody ever accept dollars for Bitcoin? And then when you think about it that way, it could go to any price. It could go to $1 trillion.
Yeah.
But why would I trade it for something that's real? It's different when you're talking about like utility assets and things that actually have value. Yes, those will fluctuate with Bitcoin. Those won't go down as sharp as like a fiat currency will. But like fiat currencies are literally worthless.
You know what? It takes a small percentage of people to really truly believe that fiat is worthless before everyone else panics and agrees. And it happens very suddenly. That's that saying, gradually then suddenly. That's one of those cases. And it doesn't take everyone fully coming to that consensus at once. It takes a small group saying, hey, this thing is worthless. And that's what every Bitcoiner learns. We all learn that, oh, fiat is worthless and Bitcoin cannot be created out of thin air. It has a real cost of production and we can hold it. We can transact with it. We can value it. And there's something there that I can actually believe in long term. And ultimately, you still have to believe in it having value. But luckily, it does. And because of all the useful aspects of it, and everybody else agrees, that's why, I just saw a tweet the other day that somebody said, oh, it's my greatest financial opinion that Bitcoin is worthless. And it's like, okay, well then send me some if it's worthless, right?
Yeah.
You can't get Bitcoin for free. It's not worthless. Literally, there are people out there that can get dollars for free. They can just print them digitally. So that is actually worthless. We're just ascribing it worth and value when there's nothing actually there. So enough people will wake up to that. And yeah, it could be a crazy suddenly moment where all models are broken, the cycle's broken, the power law, the stock to flow, all this stuff, all these models that everybody's been working on for the past 16 years of Bitcoin's life, all of that breaks in an instant. And
could you guys imagine what would happen when more people start borrowing? Because like you said, they're forest. You can create more dollars out of nothing, right? People can go to a bank and if they have an asset, they don't even have to sell the asset. They can go to the bank and they can print more dollars and hand them over to that person, right? Could you guys imagine what would happen if every single person who has a house suddenly wants to go to the bank and borrow money against that house and buy Bitcoin with it? That would be insane.
That's a speculative attack. That is exactly what MSTR is doing. That is, they're going to the house, they're going to the debt market and saying, hey, can I borrow these dollars? I'm going to go buy Bitcoin with them. That's what 21 Capital is doing. And I think individuals are doing that too.
And that's not advice though. That's not we're not telling you to do that. We're just saying it's possible. Yeah. Every single person on earth who has a house can take on a HELOC, use the equity in that house to buy Bitcoin. Well, not everybody on earth, but people who are in these countries where they can create their own money. So in Canada, for example, you can go get a HELOC, borrow Canadian dollars, sell them for Bitcoin. You do that in the US. You could do that pretty much anywhere where they create their own currency or where those currencies are available. You can borrow against your house, not even have to sell the house. You still have the house. And you can buy Bitcoin with it.
There's even beyond that. There's people with massive stock portfolios that take out margin and you can buy IBIT with it, and IBIT is backed by actual buys of Bitcoin. So again, that's another way of doing it too. And all of that's happening. And it's like literally Bitcoin is there to solve the problem of the fiat system being able to create being a debt-based system and a credit-based system. And so you're like accelerating the debt creation and you're accelerating the adoption of Bitcoin by increasing the price in the market by buying. So it's like a twofold attack.
You're right. It is.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's insane.
I think that'll become more and more popular actually through the years too. Like I've been thinking about myself in terms of refinancing my house and buying Bitcoin with it, because it just makes sense to do it. Like who cares if I have to take, increase my payments a little bit, have to readjust from 2% to 4% or whatever it is now. The asset that I'm buying is earning 50, 60% per year. Like that's a huge spread right now. It's not like it's 30 to 40. It's like 5 to 60. Like that's a massive spread there.
Big arbitrage.
Forrest, I want to bring this up for you. Bitcoin is worthless. Cool. Send me one for free then.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no response.
So true though. Like you can't argue against that. That's how powerful memes are. Like you cannot argue that.
Dude, that was posted 3 years ago too.
Yeah.
It's been the case. It's been the case forever.
Oh, I love it. Big shout out to Ian. This one made my day. Ian sent 8,888 sats to the Maple Bitcoin Fund and said, sats to get Jora beer for the next stream. Great show, guys. Love Ian.
That's this code here if anybody wanted to send some sats on Lightning. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Lots of support from the the QR code today. What are you guys thinking now? You guys want to keep going or you want to shutter?
I got to run, guys, but it's up to you if you guys want to continue going. But yeah, I got to head
I'm
out.
good. I'm good
I'm
too.
okay with ending it.
Okay, cool. Well, there's
Before we
lots
go
of
though,
questions we missed. Oh, you
thumbs
go
up.
ahead, Rashad.
Leave the thumbs up there. I think that really helps. It'll help with people learning about Bitcoin. Leave the thumbs up before you leave.
Do you guys have any? I think we should start doing this just to, trigger the YouTube algorithm a little bit. So do you guys have any questions for the people who are watching now and want to, close it and leave a comment in the actual video itself, or for the people who are watching later, just to get some comments going, get some buzz. Like we really want this message to get out there. We believe that, every new Bitcoiner that has the green light come on increases the demand for Bitcoin. It grows our net worth inherently. And I feel like anyways, we're talking about the right things here. So do you guys have a question that we should leave, maybe pin to this, but we can kind of say it out loud for everybody to answer? Do you have any specific questions? Sorry, I put you on the spot there.
Oh,
you're on
Rashad,
mute.
you're muted.
Just realized. Where do you think Bitcoin is going to be at the end of this year?
Price?
Yeah, that's a fun one.
And we can see what the range is like.
And maybe we'll look back in December if we remember and see who was closest, and maybe send some sats from the Maple Fund.
Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah, we should do that.
Yeah.
Okay, somebody just sent in. Ooh, look at this one. Some devil sats. 666 sats, but in dollars right now it's 88 cents. So we'll take that. It's
I like
some devil sats for you guys. Hey, we don't discriminate. Okay. Well, great show today, boys. The time flies on these ones. Thanks everybody so much for being here. There's a super chat to close out the day as well from Demir.
Wow.
It's awesome. We're building something very special here. This is just the beginning of it. But thanks for showing up every week. This is going to be a regular thing every Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern time. And keep showing up. We'll keep showing up if you do. And have yourselves a great weekend. Enjoy it. Because the only thing more scarce than Bitcoin is time. So thanks, fellas. We'll see you next week.
All right. See you guys.